The galaxy was young, yet already fractured, an expanse of stars and voided systems that pulsed with both grandeur and quiet menace. From the throne world of Terra, the Emperor of Mankind gazed down upon his empire, his eyes like twin orbs of timeless calculation, seeing all, yet revealing nothing. He was the architect of a vision meant to unite humanity, a vision forged in steel and willpower, but even the mightiest constructs are vulnerable to the corrosion of ambition. Around him stood the Primarchs, towering figures of genetic perfection, each a reflection of a different facet of their father's mind. They were generals, philosophers, warriors, and kings, sculpted into beings who could command legions and inspire loyalty beyond reason. Yet beneath their awe-inspiring exterior lay mortal hearts, capable of doubt, pride, and eventually betrayal. Among them, Horus, the War Master, shone brightest, a son elevated above his peers, trusted implicitly, loved almost to excess. And it was precisely this exaltation that would make him the fulcrum upon which the galaxy's destiny would pivot. For now, the seeds of catastrophe were invisible, concealed behind the veneer of discipline and triumph. On Terra, the spires of the Imperial Palace stretched like monoliths into storm-heavy skies, their surfaces slick with rain and the faint metallic sheen of industrial runoff. Shadows crept along the labyrinthian corridors, and even the faintest echo of footsteps seemed amplified, as though the building itself held its breath. The Emperor's gaze extended beyond the palace, piercing through starlight to distant worlds, calculating and patient. Every star, every system was a piece in a vast and delicate game. And yet, even he could not foresee all the twists that fate or corruption might impose. Across the galaxy, the first tendrils of rebellion took shape in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. Horus's dreams became restless, haunted by visions that were not his own. The subtle influence of the ruinous powers whispered of glory, of freedom from paternal control, of dominion over the very empire he had been sworn to protect. On worlds such as Isthvan III and the Forge worlds of Mars, murmurs of discontent threaded through the ranks of even the most loyal soldiers. Small acts, a hesitation, a doubt, a whispered conversation, bore no immediate consequences, but they were the dry kindling awaiting the spark of betrayal. The Imperium's fleets roamed the void like living metallic leviathans. Their hulls, scarred by centuries of war and maintenance, gleamed under distant suns and artificial illumination. From the command decks of these vessels, officers issued orders with precise calculation, unaware that loyalty could be swayed and that whispers of heresy could ripple faster than even the fastest communication arrays. In every sector, humanity's sons drilled, trained, and prepared for the campaigns yet to come, blind to the internal storm gathering at their core. Even the air on the front lines of distant worlds carried a tension that could be tasted. On Fenris, beneath the jagged mountains and frozen skies, space wolves trained under the stern gaze of their Primarch, Ragnar. Every swing of the frost-laden weapons, every maneuver across icy plains was a lesson in discipline and brotherhood. Yet the same winds that carried snowflakes also whispered warnings of distant treachery, of a betrayal that would make blood and snow indistinguishable. On Clothonia, Imperial guardsmen endured the suffocating jungles, unaware that the enemy that would soon march upon them wore familiar faces, their loyalty subverted by ambition and dark whispers. Horus, radiant and commanding, moved among his brothers with a calculated charisma, masking the growing tumult within. To the rest of the galaxy, he was the very embodiment of the Emperor's will. To his soul, he was at a crossroads, torn between devotion and the intoxicating seduction of absolute power. The universe itself seemed to pause, as if holding its breath, for the first spark of civil war had been lit, and no force, divine or mortal, would be able to extinguish it. Across the infinite expanse of the galaxy, the first tremors of civil unrest rippled through the stars. Horus, the War Master, commanded fleets scattered across countless systems, each vessel a fortress of steel and fire, each soldier an extension of his will. To the outside observer, his campaigns appeared as calculated maneuvers against distant Xenos threats or rebellious colonies, yet beneath this veneer of strategic brilliance, the machinery of treachery had begun to turn. The subtle whisperings of the ruinous powers threaded through his dreams, painting visions of glory, autonomy, and dominion. The seeds planted in his mind were patient, growing imperceptibly, yet with a vigor that would soon overtake even the most disciplined heart. On Istvan III, the air was thick with ash, a lingering residue of the industrial furnaces and scorched plains that marked the planet's surface. Smoke clawed at the heavens, curling around the jagged remains of once proud cities. Troops of the Luna Wolves marched in formation, their armor dulled by soot and the blood of training exercises, eyes keen yet unknowingly drawn into the orbit of fate. In the shadows of the colossal war factories, whispers of dissent drifted between officers. Loyalty, once unquestionable, wavered as ambition seeped into minds hungry for recognition, for power beyond the Emperor's reach. Each subtle hesitation, each unspoken doubt was a spark waiting to ignite a firestorm. Meanwhile, loyalist forces stationed on fringe worlds grew uneasy. Transmission reports arrived fragmented, tinged with fear, commanders missing, cults discovered, unexplained phenomena disrupting planetary operations. On Chthoniya, Imperial Guard regiments trained amidst oppressive jungles, unaware that the very soldiers they would soon call brothers could betray them. Soldiers sweated under alien canopies, muscles straining as they hauled weapons and equipment, their discipline a fragile shield against the unseen corruption growing in their ranks. Across Fenris, the space wolves moved with purpose, navigating icy plains where the wind could tear flesh from bone. They were warriors of unmatched loyalty, yet even they would not remain untouched by the gathering storm. In orbit above these worlds, massive Gothic battle fleets carved paths through the void. The hulls of ships, scarred by centuries of conflict and maintenance, reflected dim starlight, while engines roared with life, sending tremors through the vacuum. Commanders issued orders with practiced precision, unaware that the line between ally and enemy was thinning by the day. Every victory Horus achieved, every world that bent the knee, strengthened the narrative of inevitability surrounding him. His charisma, both subtle and overwhelming, drew men into his orbit, binding them with a loyalty that was increasingly personal rather than imperial. The galaxy was slipping through the Emperor's fingers, yet no immediate sign betrayed the coming conflagration. Even on the ground, the psychological weight of impending war pressed heavily upon those who sensed it. Officers walked corridors of fortress monasteries with uneasy glances, soldiers drilled under a relentless sun or biting frost, and the very air seemed saturated with tension. Battles fought in training simulations mirrored the coming civil war with eerie accuracy. Brothers would soon clash with brothers, their swords and bolters shaped by shared loyalty, yet now instruments of inevitable betrayal. The whispers that had begun in dreams in Horus's mind now spread through legions like a contagion, invisible yet potent. The War Master himself, radiant and commanding, moved among his brothers, a figure of charisma and authority. Each gesture, each word carried subtle influence, bending the will of those around him without overt coercion. And as the first tangible acts of rebellion began to surface, isolated strikes, sudden disobedience, and mysterious disappearances, Horus's power grew, as did the shadow of dread that crept across the galaxy. The scales of destiny had tipped, and while the full extent of the heresy was still unseen, the galaxy's fate was already in motion, hurtling towards a war that would leave stars blackened and brotherhood shattered. Civil war was no longer a distant threat. It was a shadow cast across every world, whispered in every command, felt in every soldier's heartbeat. The Horus Heresy had begun its slow, inevitable spread, a tide of treachery and ambition that would drown even the strongest bonds of family and loyalty. And yet, within that shadow, the Emperor watched, waiting, calculating, a silent storm prepared to strike back against the darkness that now crept ever closer to his dream of a united Imperium. As the fires of discontent quietly spread across the Imperium, the subtle tremors of rebellion began to grow into a resounding roar. Horus, cloaked in the veneer of loyalty and purpose, moved with deliberate grace through his campaign worlds, his presence a magnetic force that drew men and Primarchs alike toward his orbit. The War Master's charisma, already legendary, had become a conduit for whispers from forces unseen, dark, insidious voices that promised glory beyond the Emperor's reach and freedom from the burden of obedience. Every glance, every decision, every word of counsel carried weight, bending the hearts of his brothers even before the first blade of betrayal was drawn. On Isstvan V, the stage for the first true acts of open rebellion, the tension was palpable. Legionaries trained amidst industrial cathedrals, monolithic structures that loomed over the ashen plains like silent witnesses to history's turning. Smoke coiled around their armor, the acrid tang of metal and flame suffusing the air. Commanders whispered strategy in hushed tones, yet even their words were tainted with uncertainty. Each decision held consequences far beyond immediate tactical success, for the lines between loyalty and treachery were dissolving. Soldiers could no longer distinguish whether the orders they followed upheld the Emperor's vision or the War Master's growing will to dominate. Beyond the planet's surface, fleets of titanic ships hung in the void like celestial predators. Their massive hulls, scored with battle scars and industrial grime, glinted under muted starlight. Engines pulsed with a living rhythm, emitting a faint, ominous glow, red and menacing, echoing the war that would soon consume brother and brother alike. Within these command centers, advisors, officers, and captains felt a chill of unease, sensing the approach of a catastrophe that could not be averted by mere loyalty or duty. Horus's shadow stretched farther than any ship could travel, reaching into minds, hearts, and dreams, and slowly turning devotion into doubt, obedience into rebellion. On distant Fenris, the Space Wolves continued their harsh training under frost-bitten winds, unaware that the storm of civil war would soon wash over them with unstoppable force. Ragnar, their Primarch, moved among his sons, vigilant and commanding, yet even his keen perception could not pierce the veil of treachery that had begun to wind its tendrils into the very fabric of the legions. Every strike of their weapons, every maneuver across ice and snow was preparation not just for the battles of the Xenos, but for the tragic confrontation that would soon pit brother against brother, loyalty against ambition, honor against corruption. Meanwhile, across the Imperial webway of communications, faint signals brought fragmented messages from the frontiers, sudden uprisings quelled too swiftly, missing officers, strange cults worshipping powers unholy and forbidden. Each report was a single thread in a tapestry of doom, slowly revealing a galaxy-wide pattern of disloyalty, ambition, and whispered corruption. Even worlds far from the core of the rebellion could not escape the shadow cast by the War Master's ambition and the insidious manipulations of the ruinous powers. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the moment when the first act of civil war would cascade into a conflagration that would never truly be contained. And then came the first undeniable signs of Horus's treachery, subtle at first, yet impossible to ignore. Orders issued contradicting the Emperor's directives, fleets maneuvering with unnerving precision to exploit vulnerabilities, and whispers that grew louder with each passing day. On Isstvan V, the moment of choice crystallized, brother against brother, loyalty tested to its ultimate limit. The heresy, long incubating in shadows and whispers, erupted into action. Fire and betrayal consumed entire worlds, and the galaxy realized with a chill of horror that the age of unity had ended. The galaxy teetered on the edge of ruin. Even the Emperor's vigilant gaze, the strategic genius of a being centuries beyond mortal comprehension, could only observe the unfolding chaos with the weight of inevitability. In the hearts of men and Primarchs alike, the first true divisions had been forged, iron and blood replacing trust and camaraderie. The Horus Heresy was no longer a threat. It was the new reality, a darkness that would engulf the stars, twist brotherhood into bloodshed, and leave the Imperium scarred forever. The fires of rebellion that had begun to flicker on Istvan V now spread like wildfire through the Imperium. The galaxy, once bound together by the vision of a single unyielding emperor, now quivered under the weight of treachery. Word of Horus's betrayal had traveled faster than even the most advanced communication arrays could fully contain, whispered in hushed tones across worlds, carried in coded messages between loyalist commanders. The shadow of the heresy reached even the farthest colonies, turning trust into suspicion, loyalty into fear. Horus himself moved with deliberate precision, orchestrating maneuvers that were both brilliant and deadly. Every system he brought under his sway became a testament to his dual mastery, strategic genius in war and subtle mastery over the hearts of men. Yet, beneath his charismatic exterior, the War Master's soul was torn. The ruinous powers whispered promises of ultimate dominion, of a universe remade in his image, unshackled by paternal authority. Each whispered vision was a seductive toxin, feeding his ambition while corroding the foundations of his loyalty. Even now, the line between devotion and corruption blurred, a shifting boundary as fragile as glass. Across the stars, loyalist legions scrambled to respond. The Emperor's sons, loyal primarchs such as Sanguinius of the Blood Angels and Rabalte Guilliman of the Ultramarines, sought to stabilize regions under threat, their actions heroic yet reactive. Fleets were mobilized to protect vulnerable systems, while commanders debated the best course of action. Some urged caution, fearing Horus's growing influence. Others called for immediate retaliation, their voices sharpened by fear and a need for decisive action. Everywhere, uncertainty reigned. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, aware that the coming battles would not merely be fought for territory, but for the very soul of humanity. On the war-torn surface of worlds like Chthoniya, Imperial guardsmen trained relentlessly, preparing for conflicts that were no longer hypothetical. They moved through dense jungles, thick with choking humidity and alien flora that seemed almost sentient in its oppressive presence. Sweat and grime stained their uniforms, yet no physical hardship compared to the invisible weight pressing on their minds, the knowledge, instinctive if unspoken, that allies could become enemies overnight. Each patrol carried the tension of anticipation, every drill a rehearsal for a war in which friends could be turned to foes by subtle manipulation and whispered deceit. In orbit above these battlefields, the Imperial Navy prepared its next moves. Massive Gothic warships loomed against the backdrop of distant nebulae, engines glowing with a dull, ominous red, their immense silhouettes casting shadows across moonlit surfaces. From command bridges, captains and admirals debated strategy, unaware that Horus's subtle manipulations had already woven a web of divided loyalties throughout their ranks. The galaxy's clockwork was no longer precise. Even a single misplaced order could trigger chaos across entire sectors. Every deployment, every reinforcement carried the risk of betrayal. Meanwhile, within the War Master's own mind, the whispers of chaos had grown bolder. Visions of conquest, power, and unbound divinity swirled through his dreams like a storm. They painted scenes of the Emperor overthrown, of humanity remade in Horus's image, and of a universe bowing to a singular, unstoppable will. At times, these visions seemed indistinguishable from reality, feeding both his ambition and his paranoia. The careful balance that had once restrained him, the loyalty, the reverence for his father, now teetered dangerously on the edge of collapse. And yet, even as rebellion began to claim its first victories, the Emperor's forces remained vigilant. Loyalists worked tirelessly to reinforce worlds, train their soldiers, and counteract Horus's subtle influence. every day was a battle not only of fleets and legions, but of trust, strategy, and perception. The galaxy had become a chessboard, each system a piece, each decision a potential catalyst for devastation. The Horus Heresy was no longer a distant threat. It had become the defining struggle of mankind, a war that would test the bonds of loyalty, the endurance of empires, and the very essence of brotherhood itself. The first strikes of Horus's campaign had been executed with calculated brilliance. Loyalist worlds faltered under pressure, and whispers of the Warmaster's cunning spread even faster than the fires that consumed the outer colonies. Each victory, each subverted command, each faltering legionary tightened the noose around the Imperium's unity. The galaxy had entered a new era of darkness, a crucible of betrayal, ambition, and endless war. The galaxy's once unified heartbeat now throbbed with tension, each pulse a reminder that loyalty was no longer absolute. Horus, the War Master, moved with a precision that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. His campaign stretched across countless star systems, and with every command he issued, subtle shifts in allegiance rippled outward. Some worlds bent to his will willingly, seduced by promises of autonomy, glory, and power beyond the Emperor's strict dominion. Others resisted, their populations steeped in fear, yet even they were not immune to the insidious influence of whispers carried by agents of chaos, masked as envoys or trusted advisors. On the industrial world of Medusa, battle servitors clanged in rhythm with the reverberations of the planet's massive forges. Smoke and sparks choked the air, casting long shadows over the soldiers drilling in the ash-laden plains. Here, the subtle signs of rebellion began to show. Hesitations in movement, murmured doubts among officers, and almost imperceptible hesitancy in the soldiers' eyes. Loyalty, once ironclad, wavered. The ruinous powers had seeped into minds like a slow, corrosive oil, and even the most steadfast hearts could not remain untouched. Horus's influence was a shadow that fell over entire legions, bending them without overt coercion, a silent predator stalking the hearts of men. Above the battlefields, massive Gothic cruisers drifted through the void. Their immense engines pulsed red and ominous, illuminating hulls scarred with centuries of war. From these command bridges, captains and admirals issued orders that, on the surface, aligned with Imperial directives, but every misstep, every hesitation could be exploited. Horus had engineered a subtle network of manipulation, a web of obedience and deception that extended through both space and mind. Each victory he achieved, whether on the ground or among the stars, strengthened his aura of inevitability, and the galaxy began to see him not merely as a war master, but as a force that could not be resisted. Meanwhile, loyal Primarchs such as Sanguinius and Ferrus Manus worked tirelessly to stabilize contested systems. Sanguinius, with his radiant presence and ethereal authority, sought to inspire hope and courage among wavering troops. Ferrus Manus, relentless in his discipline and unwavering in his strategic brilliance, coordinated defenses across multiple sectors. Yet even their combined efforts were strained as the subtle manipulations of Horus and his hidden allies turned victories into fragile, temporary reprieves. The galaxy was entering a new phase of war, one in which battles were fought not just with weapons, but with perception, influence, and the twisting of faith and honor into tools of treachery. On worlds like Clethonia and Fenris, soldiers felt the growing weight of impending conflict. Patrols moved through jungles thick with alien flora, and the icy plains of Fenris offered no solace, only the bitter wind and the sharp sting of frost. Every training exercise, every tactical drill carried the unspoken knowledge that their brothers in arms could turn against them, influenced by powers beyond mortal comprehension. The tension was almost tangible, a pressure that pressed against armor and bone alike, a reminder that the coming war would test more than strength. It would test the very essence of trust and brotherhood. Horus, meanwhile, continued to walk the delicate line between hero and heretic. His demeanor radiated confidence and authority, inspiring devotion, even as dark whispers clawed at his soul. The ruinous powers offered visions of a galaxy remade, one where mankind bowed to the might of Horus and chaos alike. Every system brought into his orbit seemed to validate his rising ambition, and each act of rebellion by loyalist forces was a reminder that the stakes were absolute. Failure was not merely defeat, it was the annihilation of unity, the shattering of bonds forged over millennia. As fleets maneuvered, armies trained, and worlds teetered on the edge of open revolt, one undeniable truth emerged. The Horus Heresy was no longer a possibility, it was an unfolding reality. The galaxy, vast and teeming with life, had entered the crucible of betrayal, and even the Emperor, seated on the golden throne, could only observe with the weight of inevitability. Every system, every legion, every commander was now a piece on a board where the cost of miscalculation was measured in death and devastation. The shadow of Horus stretched across the Imperium like a living darkness, seeping into every star system, every battlefield, and even the hearts of the mightiest warriors. His hand was invisible, yet omnipresent, guiding legions with a precision that blurred the line between strategic brilliance and sinister manipulation. Each fleet under his command moved as though part of a single, conscious organism, each legionary's loyalty bending imperceptibly beneath the weight of subtle persuasion. Even worlds untouched by direct conflict felt the tremor of his influence. Governors, officers, and soldiers all sensed a shift in the balance of power, a storm gathering that none could fully predict or resist. Istvan V, now scorched and silent, had become the crucible for the first true acts of betrayal. Loyalist legions, once the epitome of discipline and faith, found themselves faced with brothers who no longer shared their allegiance. Flames consumed industrial complexes and cities alike, their red glow illuminating the twisted forms of soldiers caught between duty and deception. The very air seemed to tremble with anticipation as the first volleys of treachery were unleashed. In these moments, the theory of rebellion became tangible. Brotherhood shattered under the weight of ambition and dark whispers that no mortal could fully resist. Across the void, battle fleets maneuvered with an almost prescient awareness. Gothic warships, massive and foreboding, carved silent paths through starlit darkness. Red emergency lights flickered across command bridges, casting long shadows over officers whose expressions betrayed both resolution and fear. Each decision, each order carried the potential to tip the balance irrevocably. The ruinous powers, subtle and unrelenting, tugged at the minds of men and primarchs alike. Even those who believed themselves unwavering were not immune. Every hesitation could be exploited, every doubt magnified until it became a weapon sharper than any blade. On distant Fenris, the space wolves braced against bitter winds, their eyes scanning icy horizons as though the storm itself might deliver their enemies. Ragnar, ever vigilant, drilled his warriors with unyielding precision, knowing instinctively that loyalty alone would not suffice to withstand the coming onslaught. The frozen plains echoed with the clash of training weapons, but the true battle was yet to come, one of perception, honor, and the heartbreaking necessity of confronting familiar faces turned foes. Snow and frost stained armor, but no external hardship could match the inner turmoil spreading through the ranks of men across the galaxy. Meanwhile, Horus's mind was a battlefield of its own. The whispers of chaos offered visions of the Imperium remade in his image, of the Emperor cast down, of humanity reshaped by will alone. These visions were intoxicating, their allure undeniable, and yet they came with a subtle, gnawing dread. Every act of rebellion pushed him further from the light of loyalty. Every victory tightened the chains of inevitable war. In the deepest recesses of his soul, the War Master felt both exhilaration and terror, the duality of ambition and conscience locked in a relentless struggle that mirrored the conflict consuming the galaxy around him. As Horus orchestrated the next stages of his rebellion, loyalist primarchs worked tirelessly to contain the chaos. Sanguinius, Galeman, and Ferrus Manus coordinated defensive operations across multiple systems, their actions heroic yet reactive. Even their combined brilliance, however, could not fully stem the tide of deception and insurrection. Worlds that had once been bastions of loyalty teetered on the edge, caught between fear, manipulation, and the inexorable allure of power. Each planet lost or secured was a momentary victory or defeat in a war whose stakes were measured not in territory alone, but in the very survival of trust, honor, and the unity of the Imperium itself. By the time Horus's manipulations had begun to manifest openly, the galaxy had already shifted irrevocably. No world could claim true security, no legion could claim complete loyalty. The Horus Heresy, once a whispered threat, had become the defining reality of the age, a galaxy teetering between annihilation and resistance, a crucible in which heroes and traitors alike would be forged in fire. Every star system, every fleet, every soldier was now a part of a war that would scar the Imperium for millennia to come. The heresy spread like a disease across the stars, invisible yet inevitable, touching every world with its insidious influence. Horus, cloaked in the aura of command, moved with a predatory grace, orchestrating maneuvers that were as elegant as they were lethal. From the bridge of his flagship, he surveyed the galaxy like a chessboard, each system a piece, every legionary a pawn in a game where the stakes were measured not in territory, but in the very souls of men. His charisma, already formidable, had been sharpened by the subtle whispers of the ruinous powers. Every gesture, every command carried with it the promise of glory or the threat of damnation, and those who followed him felt the pull of inevitability. On worlds once thought secure, the first open conflicts erupted. Istvan V, still scarred from the initial betrayals, became a symbol of what was to come. Cities burning under crimson skies, industrial forges reduced to smoldering ruins, and soldiers forced to confront the unthinkable, brothers in arms now wielding weapons against them. The air was thick with ash and smoke, a bitter, choking reminder that loyalty could no longer be assumed. Officers and soldiers alike moved with precision, but the weight of treachery pressed upon them, each decision a potential catalyst for disaster. Every volley fired, every step taken across the ashen terrain carried the possibility of death, betrayal, or worse, survival tainted by complicity. Across the void, Imperial fleets maneuvered with mechanical precision, engines glowing ominous red against the backdrop of distant stars. Gothic warships, monolithic and foreboding, carved arcs of destruction in the silent darkness, their hulls scarred by centuries of battle, yet still radiating menace. From command bridges, officers barked orders, unaware that Horus's subtle influence had already seeded doubt and hesitation into their ranks. Even the most disciplined captains could not resist the creeping uncertainty, the sense that every maneuver, every strategy could be undermined by forces both seen and unseen. The galaxy had become a stage upon which strategy and betrayal were intertwined, impossible to separate and deadly in their combination. Meanwhile, loyal Primarchs labored to maintain order and protect the Imperium's core worlds. Sanguinius, radiant and fearless, inspired hope in soldiers on the front lines, his presence a light in the encroaching darkness. Gulaman, meticulous and unyielding, coordinated defenses across multiple sectors, his mind a web of strategy and logistics. Yet despite their brilliance, they were always a step behind the subtle manipulations of Horus, whose campaigns were as psychological as they were martial. Trust eroded with every whispered lie, every hidden allegiance, and every system that bent to the War Master's will. The galaxy, vast and interconnected, had become a web of peril in which even the smallest miscalculation could cascade into catastrophe. On distant Fenris, the space wolves trained beneath bitter winds and jagged ice, their muscles burning and their spirits steeled against hardship. Ragnar, ever vigilant, watched his sons with both pride and apprehension, sensing the coming storm that would test even their legendary loyalty. Every swing of a frost-forged blade, every disciplined maneuver across the snow-laden plains was preparation not only for Xenos threats, but for the betrayal of brothers. The very land seemed to conspire with the galaxy's unfolding tragedy, each frozen gust of wind whispering warnings of the horrors yet to come. Horus's mind, a battlefield of ambition and shadow, contemplated the next moves with ruthless clarity. The whispers of chaos had grown bolder, no longer merely subtle suggestions, but visions of dominion, conquest, and the reordering of the galaxy itself. The allure of power was intoxicating, promising the freedom to remake the Imperium according to his will. Yet even in his triumph, there was the faintest echo of doubt, a whisper that loyalty, honor, and the bonds forged with his brothers were not so easily severed. It was a tension that defined him, a duality that mirrored the war consuming the galaxy, ambition warring against conscience, loyalty struggling against seduction, destiny unfolding with relentless inevitability. The heresy, once a whisper, now roared across the galaxy with unstoppable momentum. Horus's influence extended into every sector, every legion, every command center, shaping minds and twisting loyalties like molten iron in a forge. On distant worlds, imperial governors and generals felt the subtle pressure of his presence, the weight of choices they did not fully understand. Orders that once would have been unquestioned now bore hidden dangers. Every hesitation, every misstep could be exploited by the War Master's cunning. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble under the invisible hand of treachery. On the industrial world of Fall, the heresy, once a whisper, now roared across the galaxy with unstoppable momentum. Horus's influence extended into every sector, every legion, every command center, shaping minds and twisting loyalties like molten iron in a forge. On distant worlds, imperial governors and generals felt the subtle pressure of his presence, the weight of choices they did not fully understand. Orders that once would have been unquestioned now bore hidden dangers. Every hesitation, every misstep could be exploited by the War Master's cunning. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble under the invisible hand of treachery. On the industrial world of Fall, the first full-scale engagements erupted. Titans and super-heavy tanks rumbled across ash-strewn plains, firing weapons whose blasts shook the ground and turned the sky red with smoke and flame. Soldiers fought valiantly, yet every engagement revealed fractures within the ranks. Some turned instinctively to allies who no longer shared their loyalty. Others hesitated, caught between conscience and obedience. Even the most disciplined units felt the subtle tug of corruption, a soft whisper that eroded certainty and replaced it with doubt. Horus's manipulations were everywhere, invisible yet undeniable, turning strategy into chaos and order into deadly improvisation. Above the battlefield, Gothic battle fleets maneuver through starfields heavy with smoke and debris. The massive vessels, scarred by centuries of combat, reflected the pale light of distant stars and the ominous red glow of their own engines. Admirals barked orders into comm systems, unaware that the seeds of betrayal had already been sown among their lieutenants. Each fleet maneuver, each formation carried within it the potential for disaster, for one false move could unravel an entire sector's defenses. The heresy was no longer confined to a few worlds. It had spread into the very fabric of the Imperium's military structure, infecting minds as thoroughly as any viral contagion. Meanwhile, the loyal Primarchs scrambled to contain the growing chaos. Sanguinius led his blood angels with a radiance that inspired devotion and courage, his presence a beacon against despair. Gilliman's mind worked tirelessly, coordinating logistics and defensive strategy across multiple star systems, attempting to maintain cohesion where it seemed all bonds were fracturing. Ferrus Manus and other loyal sons of the Emperor brought iron discipline to their campaigns, yet even their genius was strained to the breaking point. The heresy had grown beyond mere rebellion. It had become a war of perception, influence, and survival, in which every decision could determine the fate of entire sectors. On worlds like Clonia, the jungles themselves seemed to respond to the creeping darkness. Soldiers moved through choking undergrowth, the oppressive foliage hiding threats both mortal and supernatural. Sweat and grime coated armor as troops trained relentlessly, yet each exercise carried a grim awareness. The enemy could be anyone, even a brother in arms. In these moments, discipline alone was insufficient. Trust, once assumed, had become a weapon in the hands of the War Master. Every shadow concealed danger, every sound hinted at betrayal. The very land, the atmosphere, the air itself seemed saturated with the tension of inevitable confrontation. Even Horus himself, surrounded by the splendor and menace of his flagship, felt the intoxicating weight of destiny pressing against him. The whispers of chaos promised victory, power, and the chance to reshape the Imperium in his own image. Every conquered system, every subverted command, every faltering loyalist reinforced the narrative of his inevitability. Yet beneath the surface, a faint echo of conscience remained, a reminder that brotherhood and loyalty could not be severed lightly, and the cost of ambition was measured in blood, fire, and shattered worlds. The galaxy now teetered on a knife's edge, with battles erupting simultaneously across countless systems. Loyalty had become a fragile construct, trust a scarce commodity, and the line between victory and annihilation thinner than the edge of a blade. The heresy was no longer a threat lurking in shadow. It had become the defining war of the age, a crucible in which heroes would rise and brothers would fall, leaving scars on the stars that would last for millennia. The galaxy now writhed under the weight of civil war, each star system a stage for betrayal and bloodshed. Horus's rebellion, once subtle and hidden, had become an unstoppable force, spreading like wildfire through imperial sectors. His fleets moved with predatory precision, Gothic leviathans cutting arcs through the darkness, engines glowing a menacing red against the backdrop of distant nebulae. Every system under his influence was a pawn in a deadly game, every soldier a thread in a web of manipulation so intricate that even the most loyal could falter under its pull. Istvan V had become a testament to the cost of loyalty and betrayal. Industrial fortresses lay in ruins, smoke and ash choking the skies as loyalist legions clashed with those who had turned against the Emperor. Brothers who once fought side by side now faced one another across cratered fields, weapons raised against familiar faces. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the tension of inevitable slaughter. Flames cast harsh red light over shattered armor, the smoke curling like spectral fingers through the ruins. Every sound, the clash of blades, the roar of bolters, the groan of collapsing structures, was amplified in the oppressive atmosphere, a cacophony marking the birth of the heresy in blood. Above, Imperial fleets executed maneuvers with the precision of clockwork, yet uncertainty gnawed at the edges of every plan. Officers barked orders with forceful certainty, but in the shadows of their minds lingered the doubt planted by Horus's subtle influence. One hesitant decision could unravel entire campaigns, turning strategic brilliance into catastrophic failure. The very fabric of the Imperium's command structure was under siege, attacked not by strength alone, but by perception, loyalty, and the insidious machinations of the War Master. Every movement, every signal, every communication became a potential instrument of betrayal. On Fenris, the Space Wolves trained beneath winds sharp enough to cut through bone, their eyes scanning icy horizons for threats both real and imagined. Ragnar, their Primarch, pushed his warriors to the brink of endurance, aware that the coming war would demand more than skill. It would demand loyalty tested against fire, brotherhood tested against ambition. Every swing of frost-laden blades, every precise maneuver across frozen plains was preparation preparation for the inevitable confrontation, a trial in which allies could become adversaries and loyalty itself was a fragile, precious commodity. The very landscape seemed complicit in the unfolding tragedy, jagged ice reflecting red warning lights like shards of blood under the sky. Meanwhile, Horus's mind churned with visions of conquest, of empires remade in his own image, of the emperor dethroned and humanity reshaped under his dominion. The whispers of chaos had grown from subtle suggestion to a roaring chorus, guiding his strategies and strengthening his resolve. Each victory reinforced the illusion of inevitability, each faltering loyalist world a confirmation of the righteousness of his rebellion. And yet, within the depths of his mind, a faint echo of conscience persisted, a reminder that brotherhood, loyalty, and the bonds forged over centuries were not easily severed. It was a duality that defined both him and the war itself, ambition against morality, destiny against choice, darkness against light. By the time the first full-scale campaigns were underway, the galaxy had already begun to fracture irreversibly. Worlds burned, fleets clashed, legions betrayed one another, and the Emperor's vision of unity teetered on the edge of oblivion. The Horus Heresy was no longer an abstract threat. It was reality, an ever-expanding conflagration of fire, steel, and blood. Every system, every battle, every act of loyalty or betrayal was a step further into the darkness that would engulf the galaxy. And as the first true victories of the War Master spread across the stars, it became clear that no force, divine or mortal, could fully halt the tide that had been unleashed. The galaxy had entered an era of unending conflict, a crucible in which heroes would rise, brothers would fall, and the Imperium would be forged anew in fire and betrayal. The heresy had begun in whispers, but it would not end in silence. Every star, every fleet, every legionary was now part of a war that would define the fate of mankind for millennia. The galaxy shivered under the relentless tide of civil war. Horus's rebellion had moved from whispers to roaring flames, consuming systems and twisting loyalty into weaponized uncertainty. From the bridge of his flagship, the War Master surveyed his expanding dominion, a network of fleets and legions meticulously orchestrated with a predatory elegance. Every order he issued, every maneuver he orchestrated, carried subtle manipulation, bending the will of men and primarchs alike. The galaxy was no longer merely a theater of war. It was a crucible of betrayal, where the line between ally and adversary had blurred into irrelevance. On the world of deliverance, loyalist forces faced a trial of both steel and spirit. Industrial complexes stretched toward the sky, their massive walls scarred by bombardment and sabotage. Soldiers marched through streets thick with smoke and the bitter tang of ash, their armor dulled by soot and corrosion. Yet the true battle was not merely physical. The subtle seeds of doubt sown by Horus's agents twisted minds and hearts, and hesitation became a silent killer. Every misstep, every faltering glance could spell death or betrayal. Officers whispered in hushed tones, trying to inspire courage, but the shadow of the War Master loomed over every decision, a silent predator feeding on uncertainty. Across orbiting space, Gothic warships maneuvered with deadly grace. Engines glowed ominous red, casting long, jagged shadows across decks lined with steel and machinery. Admirals issued commands with forceful precision, yet the seed of betrayal had already taken root among lieutenants and mid-level officers. Horus's influence was no longer subtle. It had become a pervasive presence, a shadow within every command structure. Each tactical decision carried consequences far beyond the immediate battlefield. One miscommunication, one hesitation could cascade into ruin for an entire sector, turning preparation into catastrophe. On Fenris, the Space Wolves readied themselves for deployment to contested systems. The biting winds carved deep into frozen armor, while jagged ice peaks loomed like silent sentinels over the plains. Ragnar, vigilant and unyielding, pushed his warriors harder, knowing instinctively that the coming battles would demand more than skill. They would demand loyalty tested against the fires of betrayal. Each swing of a frost-laden blade, every precise formation maneuver was preparation for a confrontation that would challenge both body and spirit. Even in the stark silence of frozen plains, tension crackled like lightning, a prelude to the violence soon to be unleashed across countless worlds. Meanwhile, Horus's mind burned with visions of conquest. The whispers of chaos no longer lingered at the edges. They roared, filling his dreams with impossible triumphs, reminding him of the ultimate power promised should he continue his path of rebellion. The War Master envisioned the Emperor overthrown, the Imperium remade in his own image, humanity reshaped under a singular will. And yet, within the depths of his soul, a faint echo of conscience lingered, a reminder that the bonds of brotherhood and loyalty were not so easily broken. It was this duality, the intoxicating allure of power and the echo of morality, that drove him to move with both ruthless precision and almost tragic deliberation. On worlds like Chthoniya, the jungles became theaters of psychological warfare. Soldiers navigated thick foliage that seemed alive with menace, each rustle of shadow a potential threat. Training exercises turned into exercises of perception as the very environment reinforced the constant tension gripping every loyalist. The jungle's oppressive canopy filtered the pale sunlight, casting long, trembling shadows over ash-stained armor and bloodied terrain. Every sound, every movement could be the herald of betrayal, every glance a measure of hidden allegiance. Discipline alone was insufficient. Survival required vigilance, trust, and the unyielding strength to act even when certainty had vanished. The galaxy, already fractured, teetered on the precipice of annihilation. Horus's rebellion had become a force of destiny, sweeping through systems and shaking even the most loyal legions to their core. The heresy was no longer a threat. It was the defining reality of the age, a slow, inevitable collapse into fire, steel, and blood. Every fleet, every legion, every commander had become a participant in a war that would scar the stars forever, leaving few untouched by the tide of treachery, and Horus now commanded with terrifying brilliance. The galaxy convulsed under the unstoppable spread of Horus's rebellion. Systems once secure under imperial rule now quivered, their governors and military commanders caught between obedience, fear, and manipulation. Horus's influence was no longer subtle. It had become an omnipresent weight pressing upon every legion and fleet. His name alone carried power, his presence a shadow over every battlefield, every command bridge, every heart. The War Master's genius lay not only in strategy, but in his ability to bend perception, twisting loyalty and ambition into instruments of his will. On the industrial world of Obscurus, the first major fleet engagements erupted. Gothic warships fired massive macro cannons, their hulls glowing red under the strain of repeated salvos. Smoke and plasma arcs coiled through space, illuminating the void with a crimson haze. Soldiers aboard orbital assault transports prepared to descend to the planet's surface, unaware that even their own officers might be compromised. Each maneuver, each strategy carried the weight of uncertainty. Even the most experienced captains felt the gnawing tension of doubt, a poison planted by the War Master's careful manipulation. No action was simple, no victory guaranteed. Below, the planet's surface became a theater of endless fire and smoke. Titans lumbered across ruined landscapes, their massive feet crushing rubble and corpses alike. Infantry moved through ash-choked streets, their bolters blazing, armor scarred and dented by the unrelenting conflict. Here, the subtle threads of Horus's influence wove chaos into the very actions of loyalists. Hesitation, miscommunication, and the faintest trace of distrust rippled through every unit. Every decision, every engagement became a battle not only against an external enemy, but against uncertainty itself. The heresy had transformed warfare into a psychological crucible, testing both mind and body. Far above, fleets maneuvered with deadly precision. Gothic leviathans carved arcs through the void, engines glowing red against distant nebulae, hulls scarred from centuries of conflict. Officers barked orders, yet even their voices carried the shadow of doubt sown by Horus. The War Master's genius was not only in his tactical prowess, but in his ability to make his enemies question themselves. Loyalty fractured slowly, imperceptibly, like frost spreading across frozen ground, leaving entire systems vulnerable to collapse even before the first shot was fired. Meanwhile, loyalist primarchs like Sanguinius and Guilliman acted with tireless determination. Sanguinius inspired courage with radiant presence, leading troops into conflict with both valor and strategy. Guilliman coordinated multiple war zones simultaneously, his meticulous mind analyzing each variable, each probability, seeking to restore order to a galaxy spinning toward chaos. Yet even their combined brilliance struggled to counter the insidious spread of Horus's corruption. Each victory came at a cost, each delay an opportunity for the War Master to tighten his grip. The heresy was no longer contained. It was a living, breathing force, reshaping the Imperium in real time. On Fenris, the Space Wolves prepared for deployment to Obscurus, their bodies hardened by frost and discipline, their minds sharpened against both the physical and psychological trials to come. Ragnar moved among his sons, eyes like ice cutting through the storm, aware that the battles ahead would test not only their martial skill, but their very hearts. Even here, in isolation and extreme conditions, the shadow of Horus's rebellion reached out, threatening to corrupt, to divide, to destroy what loyalty remained. Every swing of the frost-laden blade, every calculated maneuver across frozen plains was practiced not only for combat, but for survival in a galaxy where brother could become executioner without warning. Horus himself, ensconced within the grandeur of his flagship, contemplated the next stage of his campaign. The whispers of chaos roared now, visions of conquest and absolute dominion blinding him with their brilliance. The Imperium reshaped in his image seemed inevitable, yet within the depths of his mind, a faint whisper of morality persisted. The duality of ambition and conscience drove him forward, shaping every action with meticulous care, ensuring that each victory was both devastating and irrevocable. The galaxy teetered on the brink. Systems burned, fleets clashed, legions wavered, and the Imperium's unity fractured under the weight of the War Master's genius. The Horus Heresy had transformed from whisper to roar, from intrigue to full-scale war. Every decision, every movement, every strike would echo through the stars for millennia, leaving scars in blood, fire, and steel that would never fully heal. The galaxy burned with a fever of conflict, each system caught in the escalating tide of the Horus Heresy. Deliverance, Obscurus, and countless other worlds bore the weight of rebellion, their cities reduced to ash, their skies choked with crimson smoke. Horus's genius lay not only in his mastery of war, but in his ability to manipulate perception, loyalty, and fear. Every victory he claimed reinforced his aura of inevitability, every system bending to his influence, tightening the noose around the Imperium. The stars themselves seemed to dim under the weight of betrayal. Istvan V, though scarred and silent, remained a haunting memory for all who survived. The first great acts of treachery had set a precedent, proving that no legion, no primarch, no soldier was immune to the seductive call of ambition and chaos. Here, brother had turned on brother, the bond of loyalty shattered under the weight of whispered corruption. Flames licked the crumbling walls of industrial fortresses, illuminating the chaos in stark red backlighting. Every step across the ruined terrain carried the risk of ambush, every movement a test of discipline, courage, and discernment. The very air was heavy with tension, smoke, and the echo of betrayal. Above the battlefields, fleets engaged in deadly ballet, Gothic leviathans maneuvering with precision tempered by the uncertainty that had begun to infect their ranks. Engines glowed red against the muted light of distant nebulae, shadows stretching across the decks like fingers of warning. Officers barked orders with authority, yet hesitation flickered in the eyes of lieutenants, doubt creeping into the most disciplined minds. The War Master's influence had become a pervasive shadow, a silent predator stalking every decision, every strategy, every pulse of the galaxy's heartbeat. A single misstep could unravel months of preparation, turning planned victory into catastrophic defeat. On Fenris, the Space Wolves braced against biting winds and jagged ice, preparing for deployment to worlds like Obscurus and Deliverance. Ragnar moved among his warriors, eyes sharp, senses tuned to the slightest sign of weakness. The frozen plains echoed with the clash of frost-laden blades, the disciplined drill a prelude to the war that would define loyalty, test courage, and challenge the bonds of brotherhood. Even in isolation, far from the heart of the rebellion, the shadow of Horus reached them, threatening to twist valor into desperation and discipline into tragic error. Every decision, every maneuver carried the weight of survival, loyalty, and conscience. Meanwhile, Horus contemplated the next phase of his campaign from the grandeur of his flagship. The whispers of chaos no longer whispered, they roared, painting visions of the Imperium remade, the Emperor dethroned, and humanity reshaped in the image of the War Master. Every victory reinforced his belief in inevitability, yet deep within him a faint echo of conscience remained, a reminder that loyalty, brotherhood, and honor were not so easily discarded. It was this duality, this tension between ambition and morality that defined him, and in turn defined the war consuming the galaxy. Across the Imperium, loyalist primarchs acted with tireless determination to contain the spread of rebellion. Sanguinius inspired troops with radiant authority, Guilliman orchestrated defenses with meticulous precision, and Ferrus Manus applied unyielding discipline where chaos threatened to dominate. Yet even their combined brilliance could only stem the tide, delay the inevitable, and protect fragments of hope. Each success was temporary, each victory a prelude to new challenges, and every system lost or secured shifted the balance further toward Horus's dominion. The galaxy had entered a crucible, a slow-burning inferno, where every star, every fleet, every soldier was a piece in a war that would scar humanity for millennia. Loyalty had become fragile, trust rare, and the line between victory and annihilation razor-thin. The Horus Heresy had transformed from whispers to roaring fire, and the stars themselves bore witness to a new era of betrayal, ambition, and endless war. The galaxy groaned under the weight of war. The Horus Heresy, once a whispered treachery, now surged like a tidal wave, consuming systems, legions, and hearts alike. Horus, perched upon the command bridge of his flagship, radiated the authority of inevitability. His fleets moved as if guided by a singular, unerring will. Gothic warships carving arcs of destruction through the void, their engines glowing ominous red against the blackness of space. Every command, every order, every maneuver carried a subtle manipulation, twisting loyalty and fear into instruments of conquest. On the world of Cadia Prime, loyalist forces faced a harrowing test of endurance. Industrial fortresses and spires, once proud and unyielding, now lay crumbling beneath the hammer of Horus's advancing legions. Titans lumbered across the ash-choked terrain, their footsteps shattering streets and walls alike. Infantry struggled through smoke and ruin, bolters blazing, armor scarred with soot and blood. Yet the greatest enemy was unseen: hesitation, uncertainty, and the subtle corruption seeded by Horus's agents. Every step carried the possibility of betrayal. Every engagement could twist loyalty into catastrophe. The air itself was heavy with smoke, the taste of ash, and the knowledge that even victory could be fleeting. Above, the galaxy's fleets maneuvered with deadly precision, yet every action bore the shadow of doubt. Gothic warships fired macro cannons that cut through orbital debris, engines blazing, hulls scarred by centuries of war. Officers issued commands with force, but the seeds of hesitation sown by Horus lingered. One misjudged maneuver could unravel an entire campaign, turning preparation into disaster. Horus's brilliance lay in his ability to weaponize uncertainty itself, making enemies question not only strategy but the loyalty of their own brothers. On Fenris, the Space Wolves braced against the icy wind, preparing to deploy to contested worlds. Ragnar moved among his warriors, eyes like sharpened steel, sensing the invisible threat that lurked behind every command, every movement. Every swing of a frost-laden blade, every tactical formation was not only preparation for battle, but for survival in a galaxy where brother could become executioner at the whisper of the War Master. The frozen landscape seemed alive with tension, jagged ice peaks reflecting faint red warning lights, shadows stretching across snow-dusted armor, a world as hostile and unyielding as the war itself. Meanwhile, Horus contemplated the next stage of his rebellion. The whispers of chaos had grown deafening, their promises of dominion and conquest intoxicating. He envisioned the Imperium remade in his image, the Emperor dethroned, humanity reshaped under his singular will. Every victory, every subverted legion, every system under his influence strengthened the certainty of inevitability. And yet, beneath the veneer of power, a faint echo of conscience lingered, a reminder that loyalty, honor, and brotherhood were not so easily discarded. This duality, ambition warring with conscience, defined the War Master and the galaxy alike. Elsewhere, loyalist Primarchs scrambled to stabilize fractured systems. Sanguinius inspired with radiant authority, his presence a beacon amid chaos. Guilliman orchestrated defenses with relentless precision, coordinating fleets and armies across multiple sectors. Ferrus Manus enforced discipline, molding fragmented forces into cohesive units. Yet even their combined efforts could not halt the spread of Horus's insidious influence. Each victory was temporary, each delay an opportunity for the War Master to tighten his grip. The galaxy had entered a crucible, a war of perception, loyalty, and survival, where every decision carried consequences measured in death and devastation. By the time the first major engagements of this final chapter unfolded, the galaxy had already fractured beyond recognition. Systems burned, fleets clashed, legions turned against one another, and the Imperium's unity teetered on the brink of annihilation. The Horus Heresy was no longer a threat. It was the defining reality of the age, a war whose echoes would shape humanity for millennia. Every star, every soldier, every command would be a testament to the stakes of loyalty, ambition, and the unyielding march of destiny. The galaxy teetered on the edge of absolute collapse. Horus's rebellion had consumed vast swaths of Imperial space, each system a battlefield of fire, steel, and betrayal. Fleets carved arcs of death through star-strewn voids, Gothic warships blazing crimson trails that illuminated the darkness. Each maneuver, each engagement was meticulously orchestrated to fracture loyalty and magnify doubt. The War Master's genius was not merely in strategy, but in the subtle manipulation of hearts and minds. Even the most disciplined soldiers questioned themselves, unsure if the brother beside them might turn a blade in betrayal. On Obscurus, industrial cities had become labyrinths of ruin. Titans advanced through streets filled with smoke and ash, their massive feet crushing rubble and bodies alike. Infantry units moved with disciplined urgency, bolters roaring amid the inferno, yet hesitation ran like a virus through the ranks. Officers whispered commands, attempting to maintain order, but Horus's influence had already taken root. Every decision was poisoned by doubt. Every tactical move carried the specter of treachery. The battle was not only of fire and metal, it was psychological, a test of faith, courage, and discernment in a galaxy unraveling at the seams. Above the surface, the Imperial fleet engaged Horus's forces in deadly choreography. Warships maneuvered in tight formations, engines glowing ominous red, weapons discharging with lethal precision. Shadows stretched across hulls, casting officers into silhouette as they barked orders over comms. Yet even here, hesitation lingered. Trust had become a fragile commodity. One miscalculated engagement, one delayed salvo, could unravel entire campaigns. Horus's brilliance lay in turning uncertainty itself into a weapon, weaponizing doubt to fracture cohesion and magnify chaos. On Fenris, the Space Wolves braced against blizzards and jagged ice. Ragnar, vigilant as ever, drilled his warriors in relentless exercises designed to sharpen both body and mind. Each swing of a frost-laden blade, every tactical formation was preparation for the coming crucible, deployment to worlds where brother could become foe, and loyalty itself was a fragile, precious resource. Even in isolation, removed from the front lines, the shadow of Horus's rebellion reached out, threatening to twist discipline into desperation, valor into fatal error. The frozen plains seemed alive with tension, ice peaks reflecting red warning lights like shards of blood beneath the sky. Meanwhile, Horus's mind burned with visions of ultimate conquest. The whispers of chaos had become deafening, promising the overthrow of the Emperor, the remaking of humanity, and the rebirth of the galaxy under his singular dominion. Each victory confirmed his sense of inevitability. Every faltering loyalist world reinforced the narrative that he was the galaxy's destined ruler. Yet beneath this drive lurked the faintest echo of conscience, a whisper that loyalty and brotherhood were not so easily cast aside. This tension, ambition against morality, destiny against conscience, defined the War Master and the galaxy itself, guiding each move, each campaign with precision and inexorable intent. Elsewhere, loyalist Primarchs struggled to stabilize systems on the brink of collapse. Sanguinius inspired troops with radiant authority, instilling courage amid chaos. Guilliman coordinated defenses across sectors, ensuring every fleet, every regiment was positioned for survival. Ferrus Manus enforced discipline where disorder threatened to consume men and machines alike. Yet even their brilliance was strained to its limit. Horus's rebellion had become a living, breathing force, reshaping perception, war, and loyalty itself. Each engagement, each delay shifted the balance toward the War Master's dominion. By the time the heresy reached its zenith in this chapter, the galaxy had fractured beyond recognition. Systems burned, fleets clashed, brothers turned on brothers, and the Imperium itself teetered on the precipice of annihilation. The Horus Heresy was no longer merely a war, it was a defining era, a crucible of fire, betrayal, and destiny. Every star, every soldier, every commander was now part of a story that would echo across millennia, leaving scars in steel, blood, and the conscience of humanity itself. The galaxy trembled beneath the culmination of war. Horus's rebellion had reached its apex, systems burning, fleets shattered, and the Imperium itself teetering on the edge of annihilation. The War Master's genius had transformed whispers into roars, subtle manipulations into overwhelming force. His fleets carved arcs of fire through the void, Gothic leviathans glowing red against the backdrop of distant nebulae. Every order, every maneuver, every whispered command carried the weight of inevitability. Even the most stalwart loyalists felt doubt prick at the edges of their minds, uncertainty gnawing where confidence once stood. On the surface of Cadia Prime, industrial cities and fortresses lay in ruins. Titans lumbered across ash-choked streets, their massive feet crushing rubble and bodies alike. Infantry units pressed forward through smoke and fire, bolters booming, armor scarred and battered. But the true danger was not the enemy alone. Hesitation, fear, and the shadow of betrayal infected even the most disciplined troops. Officers barked commands, yet every glance toward a brother in arms could bring sudden treachery. The battlefield was a crucible, testing both courage and perception, demanding that soldiers discern loyalty amid chaos or die trying. Above the shattered worlds, Imperial fleets engaged Horus's armada in a deadly ballet. Engines glowed red as ships maneuvered through debris-strewn voids, weapons arcs cutting through darkness. Shadows stretched across command decks as officers barked orders, doubt flickering in their eyes despite centuries of discipline. Horus had weaponized uncertainty itself, turning hesitation into a sword that cut as deeply as any bolter round. One misstep, one delayed volley, one faltering decision could cascade into the ruin of entire sectors. Loyalty was no longer a certainty, it was a fragile commodity, and Horus was master of exploiting every fracture. On Fenris, the space wolves readied for final deployment. Ragnar moved among his sons, eyes like sharpened ice, sensing every ripple of doubt and fear that the galaxy's turmoil had sown. The bitter wind tore across the plains, whipping snow and frost across armor and blade alike. Every drill, every swing of frost-laden steel was preparation not just for combat, but for survival in a galaxy where brother might strike brother at a whisper's command. The frozen peaks, red-lit from distant alarms and warning flares, reflected the tension in jagged, bleeding shards across the snow. Horus, ensconced in the grandeur of his flagship, contemplated the final stages of his rebellion. The whispers of chaos had grown into a chorus, visions of conquest and ultimate dominion blinding him with their intoxicating clarity. The Imperium, he believed, was destined to fall, to be reshaped under his singular vision. Yet beneath the roar of ambition, a faint echo of conscience remained. Even he understood that the bonds of brotherhood, loyalty, and honor could not be fully erased. This tension, ambition against morality, destiny against conscience, drove him to acts of both brilliance and devastation, shaping the galaxy with every calculated decision. Elsewhere, loyalist primarchs fought desperately to stem the tide. Sanguinius, radiant and unyielding, inspired troops with courage that pierced even the darkest despair. Gilliman coordinated fleets and armies with mechanical precision, a bastion against the rising chaos. Ferrus Manus enforced unyielding discipline where hesitation threatened survival. Yet even their combined brilliance strained against the relentless pressure of Horus's rebellion. Each victory was fleeting, each delay a chance for the War Master to tighten his grip, and every system contested became a measure of resolve, courage, and endurance in a galaxy being remade in fire and blood. The heresy had reached its apex. Systems burned, fleets clashed, legions betrayed one another, and the Imperium's unity hung by a thread. Yet amid the carnage, sparks of resistance persisted, reminders that even in the darkest hour, loyalty, courage, and hope could endure. The galaxy was scarred, but not yet extinguished. Every star, every fleet, every soldier bore witness to the cost of ambition, the weight of betrayal, and the ultimate test of loyalty. The Horus Heresy would echo across millennia, leaving scars in blood, steel, and the conscience of humanity that could never fully heal.